Let's make another pluck inside of faceplant. So like our last session, I'm going to start out with the wavetable. So for our MIDI, I went ahead and set it to C2. And then inside of our faceplant for a generator, I just clicked on analog, turn on the unison, set the voices to 6. I left the detune alone in the spread. Right click on the release and set it to 500. And then I turned down the sustain a little bit, so around like 83% or so. And then for the attack, I just double click on that, so that way it's set to 10 milliseconds. I also added a distortion and turned this up a little bit, not too much. And then I added a mix to turn the level down, so around like 73% or 70%, and it's perfect. And then I also changed the shape, so it's not supposed to be a sawtooth wave. I'm going to change it to a square wave. And I'm just going to shorten this MIDI too. So it's like a pluck. Yeah, that's good enough right there. Alright, sweet. Now we can record this and export our sample. So I'm just going to edit this a little bit. So I'm going to consolidate it and turn up the volume. And now I'm going to export it. And I'm just going to rename this C2 square wave for faceplant. And now I'm just going to insert a new faceplant. Click on new up here to clear the patch. And then for our generators, I'm going to click on Wavetable. And now we can import our sample that we recorded into the Wavetable. And I'm just going to drag and drop that in here. And I realize I misspelled wave, but that's alright. That does not really matter. And then I'm just going to click on done. Alright, let's see how that sounds played back. Oh, wait, hold on. Actually, you know what? First, I'm going to use the MIDI melody file thing that we had from the intro of the video. So I'm just going to drag and drop that really quickly. So let's see what that sounds like. Perfect. Sweet, so that is the first part of the sound. And now we can start on making the actual preset. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I actually turned on the unison again. I turned up the detune by a little bit, and then I set the spread to 50%, and I also set the release to 100 milliseconds. And I did the same thing that we did inside of the wavetable. I'm going to double click on the curve and double click on the attack to set it to 10 milliseconds. And now it is time to automate our wavetable. So I'm going to add an LFO in our modulator section, make this kind of a shape, turn off the modulator. Then I'm going to come over here to our plus, and modulate the frame by a little bit, not too much, so around like 28 or 30%. This is also like a pluck, but it's also going to be treated as a lead, like how it was played in the intro of the video. So it should sound like that. And I just remembered it is playing in the opposite direction. And so what we're going to do is click on the negative of the polarity for our wavetable, and now it should play in the right direction. And then I'm just going to go back to automating the frames by a little bit. So around there, like 40% or so. Alrighty, cool. Now we're going to start on our effects. So the first effect that I added was a shaper. And I created like this kind of shape. I think I turned up the drive by around 3. So 3 decibels of drive. Then I'm also going to turn the mix down a little bit. So around like 60%. That's pretty loud, so I'm just going to lower this down a bit. And then the next effect that I added was a snap heap. I came inside here and did parallel processing. I added a chorus, convolver, a dynamics. This dynamics is actually going to be used to turn the effect up even more. And then I added a filter. And the filter is a high pass, so I'm going to set it around there for the cutoff, which is like around 400 hertz or so. And for the chorus, I just went ahead and turned up the depth, and I turned the rate up a little bit. I also left the mix at 100%. I'm just going to mess around with the depth and rate knob. And so around there, so the depth's at like 11, the rate is around, was it 2000, around 2000 hertz or kilohertz. And then for the convolver, the impulse response is, of course, going to be my favorite impulse response, which is the First Baptist Nashville church thing. I went ahead and turned up the tone a little bit. And then for our dynamics, I went ahead and did upwards, or no, I'm sorry, not upwards. I went ahead and did downwards compression to pretty much squish the sound. So I set the ratio to 6. Then I turn up the out gain. And you can really hear the chorus effect. So I think I am going to turn down the depth a little bit. And then now I'm just going to mess with the cutoff so I get the sound that I like. And then of course for our parallel bus, I'm going to turn down the gain. And I think I'm also going to turn up the release on the dynamics, just so it slowly backs off of the reverb. When the release is too fast, you can kind of hear it like stuttering a little bit. So I'm going to set it to around 200%. Alright, sweet. And that is pretty much it for the parallel processing with the snap heap. And then the next thing that I added was another shaper, but I think this time I'm going to add a distortion and just do a little bit of saturation. So I'm going to turn the drive down a little bit to around like 3, and then I'm just going to turn the mix down to a very low percentage, so maybe around like 12% or so. Or around 17%. That's pretty good. And then the next thing that I did was added a multipass, and I use kilohertz OTT effect in OTT, and I just turned down the mix a little bit. So around 42%. And then the last thing that I went ahead and added was a filter. So I did a high pass filter, and I cut it around 300 hertz. Then I went ahead and added a limiter. We got a little bit of headroom here, so I'm just going to boost the end gain by around probably 2 decibels. Perfect. And I think I want to add some more detune to our sound here, so I'm just going to turn up the detune by a little bit more. So around close to 100%. And let's see what it sounds like pitched up. Oh gosh. I'm also going to go ahead and turn on the glide and set it to 20. So that way there's a little bit of glide, and then for the polyphony, I'm going to make sure that's at 1 voice. It sounds like the glide is a little bit too much for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn that down a little bit more. So around like 15. And that is our sound. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.